So Steve, you and I have both been playing Halo Campaign Evolved. We've played the entire game, including the main campaign and the bonus missions. We've played together in co-op. However, I've been playing on Series X, and you've been playing on PlayStation 5 Pro, which still sounds crazy for Halo, but yeah, it's on PS5 as well.
It's wild to see Master Chief appearing on the dashboard of a PS5. Like, I think the only thing that will be more jarring than that is actually holding a physical copy of the game with him on the box with the PS5 logo on it. It's kind of the same thing as when I first got my hands on the NSO Genesis controller with Nintendo logos all over it. It just feels like something that shouldn't exist. But yeah, here we are. We have a PlayStation 5 Halo game, and it's an interesting case because I think that the tale of the tape here is going to be really interesting when you start to dig into the performance. I've seen a bit of your footage, you've seen a bit of mine, and I thought that this would be an overall very clear win for the PS5 Pro, and it kind of isn't. Looking at your footage and looking at mine, there are some interesting things that Halo Studios have done to manage performance on the PS5 Pro, as well as seemingly the Series X. The one that I find most interesting, and not necessarily in my favorite way, is aggressive use of half-rate animation. So in any big firefight in Campaign Evolved, there you kind of start to see, to manage the frame rate, they start to reduce enemy and other effect animations down to half rate. So if you're playing in performance mode, that means that the animation goes down to 30 FPS for things all around Master Chief, and it happens like not at a distance, which is how it's typically used. Typically in most games, half rate animation happens for things way off in the horizon. This can happen right up next to you. And so you'll see bullets coming in and they'll start to get slower as things get busier. And that's something that I feel like I noticed a bit more of in my footage than yours. Particularly, there's this one clip we both captured where a UNSC ship is flying off in the distance. And if you look at the PS5 Pro side very closely, you'll notice that the half rate animation starts significantly closer to the camera than it does on the Series X.
This is something you mentioned to me, and I hadn't noticed it until that moment, but it does exist on Series X as well. I was looking in the distance at Banshees, and there were definitely decimented frames. But that being said, the Series X version, while it's still... overall, both versions are really, really gorgeous. And it's worth noting as well that they've remade Halo 1 before, and I feel like they just completely butchered the art style. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary on 360 just... made things too bright, it got rid of any darkness, but it also made all the skyboxes just really one note. Like, you look up at the Halo ring and it's not really there. Look up at planets and they're so hard to view. And this new remake definitely is very loyal to the original. Like, all the skyboxes still look as prominent as they were in the first place. Use of darkness and light and bouncing light is just absolutely incredible, and they both use ray tracing as well to a great degree, so you see like the blasts of Covenant weapons, they illuminate as they go, all the metallic surfaces in the interior areas, they're reflecting as they should, light bridges look gorgeous. It's a really heavy game, and Series X definitely feels that, because it's running at 1080p rather than, well, 4K of like Halo Infinite and Master Chief Collection. So you're definitely getting a big reduction in resolution with Series X, and I assume PS5 Pro is a lot higher than that, especially because it's using PSSR as well.
Right. I'm not sure of the internal resolution. There's something unique about this game in that the PS5 Pro games typically have like a balanced mode. So you have like performance and quality, which is the standard this generation for most AAA games. But on PS5 Pro, you usually, on a lot of games, get a balanced mode where you kind of get some of the benefits of quality mode with a higher frame rate, usually in the 40s, to lean on VRR to give you that kind of appearance of a really smooth presentation. That's not here. It has the same quality and performance toggles as the Series X. It does feel a bit sharper, and it's always difficult to tell when you're looking at footage online, because obviously there's some compression inherent to this medium, but it does look like the PS5 Pro is a bit sharper than Series X here. I would say though that it's not like super noticeable. Like, if you have a Series X, I'm not going to tell you to run out and go get a PS5 Pro to play this game that way. I think that this is something where It looks phenomenal no matter where you're at. I think that, your footage, I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I would absolutely play this.
Yeah, it's the same game. You're playing it, like, no matter where you play it, you still get outstanding visuals. One thing I did notice as well, though, on PS5 Pro is the ray tracing seems a little bit further ahead. So there's one clip where we're on Silent Cartographer, and in the distance you can see on the mountains there's just sort of exposed light on Series X, whereas there's proper shadow on PS5 Pro, and they seem to push that further. But that's stuff you're only going to see in comparisons. So when you're actually playing, that stuff will not even click. You're not going to notice that stuff. So it really is gorgeous everywhere. But PS5 Pro does have some other benefits. And it's something that we noticed when playing co-op. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if the light bar flashed with your health bar or something like that? And you're like, John, that's literally what's happening right now.
Yeah, so there are some benefits that are inherent to PS5 hardware. You have the adaptive triggers, from the DualSense are used really, really well here. So when you have a gun that's not automatic, like a Magnum or a shotgun or something, and I spent a lot of time fighting the Flood with a shotgun because it's just my favorite way to take them out. You get that kind of resistance in the trigger, so every pull of it feels, intentional, actiony, weighty, and that's really nice on those guns when you're not using like a assault rifle or something like that. It's really nice to feel that kind of resistance in having to pull the trigger each time to take enemies out. Haptics are excellent. I was hoping there'd be gyro. Unfortunately, there isn't, which I think would probably be too big of an advantage in the PS5 column. But yeah, the light bar also functions while you're playing. So when your shield depletes and then it starts to recharge, you'll see the light bar start flashing colors, which is exactly how you said it should work. And then you also hear certain things, like certain comm sounds and Master Chief's shield refill sound all come through the DualSense speaker, which is also just kind of a neat additional thing that they do.
And all the visual bells and whistles, they're important. I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and they have done the original artwork a great justice. And they've also changed parts of the level design. Like, you'll notice Silent Cartographer, again, is a lot more bumpy. There's rocks. They've removed some boulders. Like, they've changed how some of the level is actually designed. They've changed some paths so the Warthog can get through easier. There's just general adjustments to level design, especially in the more repetitive parts in the interiors, where they've just kind of... Sometimes it is still a little repetitive, but they've definitely changed a bunch of rooms to feel more robust. But all this stuff is actually the least important part of this remake, I feel, because the core of how the mechanics feel are nothing like Halo 1. And I've done a couple of comparisons with Combat Evolved and Campaign Evolved, and also a few of Halo 3. And basically, they've pretty much mirrored how Halo 3 feels with this one. So the gravity of your jumps, they're Halo 3, not Halo 1. The gravity of the Warthog, and especially Ghosts. I don't know if you remember how Ghosts sounded on the original Xbox, but they were very floaty. There's no friction whatsoever, and if you drove off a slope, it would just plummet to the ground. So Ghosts, Banshees, Warthogs, they're all entirely Halo 3 coded. Even like ammo amounts. So the assault rifle in Halo 1 had 60 rounds. There's some things unique to this one, though. The assault rifles never had recoil before. Like, it would shake a little bit, but in this one, if you hold down the trigger, it like slowly rises. So I think in the past, Chief was meant to be too strong for recoil, and they've made that a bit more grounded now. So while it operates like Halo 3, there is recoil that's never been there before. So there's stuff unique to this, but in general, I'd say this is more Halo 1, but with Halo 3's mechanics. Then that's the crucial part of this above performance and visuals.
I think it's a smart move too, because obviously there's been a lot of refinement between, Halo 1 and 3. Halo 3 is where a lot of fans jumped off. It was the last really, really big Halo game. So it makes sense that you would want to kind of get those fans back by having it controlled the way they remember. And as I played, I was trying to pick out these differences. I did not play any of the older Halo games during the review period, but it controlled the way I remembered while definitely knowing it was different, if that makes sense. Like, this is Halo the way I remember it, but also there's a bit of cognitive dissonance in that I know the game didn't play this smoothly back when I played it in 2001. Particularly in the vehicle handling, like you mentioned, being able to be on a ghost and like swing around an enemy and continue firing was not super easy on the original Halo. And in this one, it feels like, oh, this is how it should work. After years of design iteration.
Yeah. There was no boost on the Ghost in the original. Like, Ghost was literally just float around and shoot.
Yeah, everything's a bit faster in this one. Chief can run, and there was no sprint in the original Halo either. So you can sprint around and actually move very quickly through certain areas of levels.
That's a very big deal, because since the 343 days, that's been a big, argument between Halo purists and the new Halo fans. And honestly, the only time I really used sprint was when you and I played co-op and we ignored the Scorpion and played through Attack on the Control Room just on foot, which is a lot harder. And because there's a lot of space intended for the Scorpion, you're moving slower. So I sprinted then. But otherwise, I felt like the level design was still not really made around sprint, and so I just didn't really touch that button much. And that's... You can use it if you want to, but nothing's taken away by having sprint in there. You just don't use it.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice. I chose to use it in a few spots because the flood would often overwhelm me, and I would just sprint down a hallway, turn around, and start firing. But I feel like it's one of those where there's probably not a wrong choice. But yeah, some fans are going to be dead fastly against not using that, and you don't have to, so it's fine.
They also, Clambering's not back. So Clambering's been there since Halo 5, it's an Infinite as well. They didn't bring it in, and I like that. I really love doing the crouch jumps if you're trying to reach a surface that you can't quite reach, and that's totally in here. You can just jump, crouch, and just sort of try and get yourself on there. So it plays literally like Halo 3 does, apart from the sprint, which is great. There's even like a Halo 3 control scheme. The default one is... changes a few of the inputs, so you can basically make it input like Halo 3 as well, which is awesome. But there's also things like hijackings in there from Halo 2. The only like modern Halo thing that isn't in 2 and 3 is dual wielding, but you've got some weapons, like the SMG is in the core campaign now, which is pretty cool. The Magnum, that still operates just like Halo 1, so that's a lot more powerful than anything that Halo 2 and Halo 3 had. But yeah, other than that, this is what Halo was refined to be, just applied to Halo 1. And that's for the enemies as well. So the hunters in Halo 1, you could just get behind them and shoot them with your pistol a few times, or whack them, and they would go down. But they're a lot more of a fight now. You're going to be plastering them with grenades, you're going to be shooting them, getting behind their backs a lot trickier. So there's a lot more strategy to some of these enemies.
A lot of the enemy designs feel appropriately tough, because yeah, you could cheese a lot of enemies in the original Halo. Like you said, the hunters were particularly easy to take out, despite the fact that they should be one of the most difficult enemies in the game to handle. And I found myself actually struggling with them from time to time, especially when you'd have 2 or 3 in the same room. I feel like there's a really good balance here between difficulty. Like I died a lot during my playthrough. You'd get stuck with a grenade, or something would blow up next to you in the middle of combat, and Master Chief would just ragdoll. You and I died a ton playing on Legendary. During our
and that was without the Scorpion. Like, that was the hardest way you could have done it, on a hard difficulty in a inconvenient way. But they still let you do it, though. Like, there's like rocket launchers plastered around if you haven't got the Scorpion, or you can find a Wraith or whatever. There's a lot of improv here, which is what Halo's always been about. Like, you're low on ammo, so you kill an enemy and take their weapon. It's that constant flow that makes this just so fun. On that note, though, I think improv in weapons has always been such a core part of why the multiplayer of Halo's great. And there's no multiplayer apart from the co-op, which is strange. They did the same thing with Combat Evolved Anniversary, where they just gave you Reach DLC with like Halo 1 theme maps. But for some reason, they never remake Halo 1 multiplayer. And that's just a huge pillar of Halo 1 that's not here. It's budget priced, like, accommodate for that, but I don't know, it's strange.
It is. I think that it kind of belies a bit of a misunderstanding of what people loved so much about the original Halo. I spent more time in Blood Gulch than I spent in the entire campaign, and so I feel like this is a big miss for this game. I would love to see it. Also, it probably wouldn't have kind of the clunky name of Campaign Evolved if it had multiplayer. I don't think anybody likes that name.
No. But the mechanics here are so good, though. Like, this is like the best Halo has felt since the Bungie days. And to not have a multiplayer themed around that feels like such a big loss. And we'll get into the bonus campaign missions in a moment as well, but there's mechanical stuff in there when it comes to weapons that were never in Halo 1 that would have been really fun to play around with and just sort of like a best of all the weapons, of all the mechanics in Halo multiplayer. But yeah, not today, apparently.
Yeah, it seems interesting to me because I really want to play this game against my friends. I enjoyed playing with you in co-op. I had a lot of fun. I'll probably play it with other friends once the game releases and they're able to play it. I love the campaign. It's a lot of fun, but there's only so much you can do within that campaign, right? It's not the longest game in the world. It takes maybe a handful of hours to beat, I'd say. PlayStation, I didn't look at my time, but I think it was somewhere around 7 hours that it took to beat the campaign. I could be wrong about that, but it's either way. It's not like
it's around that length, and like you've got you can do it on Legendary, you can find the skulls, and you do it in co-op. Like there's definitely life after finishing it, but Halo's the kind of game you play for years, not for a week. And that's because of the multiplayer.
Right, absolutely. That's what gives it kind of its long legs. And unfortunately, we don't have that option here. The skulls are interesting. I think there's quite a few of them. If I remember, the menu says there's something like 39. I don't know where all of those are hiding. But if you find one of the cool things that they did do to extend the gameplay time a bit is that if you find 3 skulls within a campaign run, you get access to a randomizer, which will just change enemy placements, weapon placements, so that you can't just go through on muscle memory alone. Unfortunately, I did not unlock that. I didn't find it. There's also a perspective skull, which gives you third-person gameplay, which
that's cool.
That is really cool, because for people not fully in the know, Halo was at one point in development a third-person game, so you kind of get to see what that would have been like.
Lots of really cool ways of changing the gameplay. There's also a machinima mode. And in the Halo 3 days, I made Halo Machinima. So in that game, you'd have to play around in multiplayer and then go into the theater and view it again. Whereas here, you're doing it in real time. You can move the camera around whenever you want to, rather than it being a replay. So you get a lot more control over what your actors are doing. So that's cool. But also, Halo Machinima makes more sense in empty multiplayer maps than it does in a campaign map. So I don't know, but it does suck not to have the multiplayer in there, but what they've done, judging it for what it is, they have done a tremendous job of updating the campaign. Mechanically, it's great. Visually, it's beautiful. They've even changed the dialogue in a lot of places. Brand new recordings for every line, but they also do a lot of foreshadowing to Halo 2 and Halo 3. Captain Keyes talks about his daughter. Cortana has moments of showing that her evil side, way before we see it in far later Halo games. There's just really cool glimpses that they couldn't have known when they were making the first game.
Yeah, I think it's really nice the way they did these. So one thing we haven't talked about is that most of the missions are bookended with cutscenes that are pre-rendered, which is... I'm not the world's biggest fan of pre-rendered cutscenes, and they initially bugged me quite a bit, but as my time wore on with the game, I kind of just stopped being bothered by them. I just kind of took them for what they were. And there are some really, really great narrative bits that are dropped in there. Like you said, you get to see Cortana kind of show what would happen to her later in future games. You have references to new games, but I will say the only thing I found jarring was that these cutscenes are seemingly at maybe 24 FPS, to kind of match more like a cinematic feel. Yeah. And when you go from 60 FPS gameplay into those, it can feel a bit jarring.
It can. And I actually had skipping on Series X, and I restarted my console a few times, but the cutscenes would still occasionally just buffer, a little skip. And I think when we're playing on co-op, that kind of applied to you as well, because you're synced to my console. So that was weird. And I don't know if it's just my system, but I definitely got some skips on Series X. And they did pre-rendered cutscenes in Halo 2 as well. And those were fully CG, not in engine at all. Whereas these ones are clearly still in Unreal Engine 5. They're still clearly using the same assets, which makes it a bit more strange why they're not real time. There is a weird juxtaposition there.
Yeah, but that being said, I mean, it's a story delivery mechanism, and I like what
Yeah.
they added to the story. Similarly to the, weirdly to mention in this video, the Star Fox remake that we all recently played. I think these
Yeah.
cutscenes, just add a bit of lore to an already lore-heavy universe. It also kind of showcases the difference in characterization in Master Chief himself over the last, 20 years. Like he talks so much more in this game than he did in the original. He basically didn't really talk at all in the original Halo.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not sure that he said anything, but
At the very end,
Yeah, I
when he
think-
takes off his helmet, but yeah, he's not a talker in that game.
yeah, and in this one,
And,
he's very chatty.
Yeah, he's pretty chatty. It's the bonus missions where he's extremely chatty. So I guess that's a good avenue to go to the bonus missions, because it's about Chief and Johnson, and Chief doesn't shut up. He talks a lot in those missions with Johnson. It's almost like all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously we have this new kind of thing in AAA game design where someone always has to be talking.
Yeah.
You can't have gameplay moments without somebody delivering exposition. That's kind of a recent trend, and the bonus missions definitely follow that trend. So they take place 1 year before the events of Campaign Evolved, or the original Combat Evolved, and it's Master Chief and Johnson infiltrating a Covenant ship. And there's no Cortana, obviously, because Chief hasn't met her yet. And between Johnson and Chief, they kind of fill that role of filling dead air by just talking through things.
Yeah, and the bonus missions don't actually feel like Halo 1 at all. So you've got the same mechanics as the core campaign, which again are basically Halo 3's mechanics, apart from you get like 4 grenades, and there's not much else that's different really. But honestly, you get so many weapons and enemy types that are from Halo 2 and Halo 3 and Halo Reach. Like you get the Needler rifle, you get the Covenant sniper rifle, you get the Spiker that Brutes use because there's a Brute in there too. There's a Brute enemy type now. It basically feels like Halo 2 more than anything. And yeah, when it comes to dialogue tone, when it comes to weapon balance, when it comes to everything, there's actually no Halo 1 in these bonus missions. It's just kind of another Halo, which is quite cool.
I really liked these. I didn't know how I was going to feel about them because it's brand new material from, a newish studio, and I don't really look forward to that kind of stuff. But when I previewed the game, I didn't get to see any of the bonus missions, but this was back at SGF, and they told me that these were for more advanced players. They recommended you play them after. I don't know that necessarily holds up. I think it's maybe more for people with experience with Halo, but in a lot of ways, the bonus missions to me felt a bit easier than the later levels in the original campaign, like especially given the wide variety of weapons they give you. I was so happy to have the needle rifle back, because that made short work of just about
extremely powerful. Yeah, and you start off with the battle rifle, which just kind of sets the tone that this isn't really Halo 1. Like they've got the Magnum still in there, like you can use that, but just starting with the battle rifle and fighting brutes, it literally just felt like Halo 2 again. There's even like profits in the story. Like, it's so divorced from Halo 1. But you get some good variety in there too. There's one point where you start off on like a Covenant battleship, and then you land on a planet. You get to see a lot of stuff that isn't explored that often through Halo, and it's neat. They're good levels. Like, it's not like the best Halo's ever been, but they're still really nicely paced. There's some good variety. The story's fine. Like, in general, it's good.
Yeah, I think that they don't add much lore-wise to the universe of Halo. There's nothing here that's important that you have to know, unless you're just a giant Halo fan and you have to know every last bit of official lore. There's nothing here that just I couldn't have lived without knowing, but the gameplay is fun. It's a lot of fun. It kind of gives me hope that they'll give Halo 2 the same treatment, because they incorporated so much of its DNA into this, and I was like, this is pretty fun to play. Like, I wouldn't be upset if Halo Studios went on to do Halo 2 Evolved, hopefully with multiplayer, but this kind of return to form for the series is nice to see, because I didn't love Halo 5. I certainly didn't love Halo Infinite. This is the first time in quite some time that I've played a Halo, like a proper AAA Halo release, and just really don't have anything negative to say about it. I loved it.
343 started with Combat Evolved Anniversary, and it was kind of a sour note to begin on, because that was just a one-to-one remaster. They just changed the visuals, and they couldn't even really do that right. Whereas this time, they've rebuilt it from scratch, new mechanics, changed the level design, some new missions, and they've nailed it. Like this is like the first time in a long time where you can just say they've done a really good job. No multiplayer definitely stings, but we'll get that eventually. We'll get a Halo of multiplayer at some point. The purpose of this one is it's a budget $50 campaign-only deal. And I can accept that. I'm disappointed by it, but I can accept that's what it is. And they've just done really well.
Yeah, and in the current climate where, just the games industry is a mess, seeing a game with a bit more restraint that's not trying to do everything and is releasing at a lower price gives me hope that maybe we could see more games and this studio will continue on working on this. So I'm okay with this, even though I would love to have classic Halo multiplayer back. And I think there's multiple ways you could package and sell that. Looking at what they have created and what we've played, I'm just thrilled with how nicely it ended up. I played it, and most of the time I was just thinking about familiar spots, locations, and story beats, and how much I love seeing them, really given the treatment they deserve in terms of, this game is just visually stunning. It looks amazing. It's a showpiece for modern hardware, which is what the original Halo was meant to be when it came out. So it really captures the spirit of the game in that regard. And like you said, it's so faithful. Like if you go back and you look at that anniversary footage that you took, they got some of the trees wrong. Like some of the trees just aren't the right trees. And looking at these two side by side, I saw your comparison of the original Halo, the 01 Halo, and Campaign Evolved, and it just looks like what the original Bungie developers would have wanted the game to look like had they had the technology. And I think that's the best way to do a remake. It looks the way it probably would have had they had the tools available, and it feels the way it would have if they had had 20 years of experience building Halo games when they made this one. So I have really almost nothing negative to say. Gosh, if I was to rate this, I think I would give it like a 9. It's as close to perfect as you can get with some definitely obvious shortcomings, but nothing that really damages the experience.
Yeah, it's an incredibly hard one to rate because we both love Halo, and this is as good as Halo has been since the Bungie days. That being said, no multiplayer it stings because that's what I think Halo is about. The campaign is something you start with campaign, you maybe replay it on different difficulties, replay it with friends, but you end up playing multiplayer through the entire generation, and that's not here. So if they did remake all the iconic Halo multiplayer maps and put that in there, this would be about as perfect as Halo gets. But without that, like just judging the campaign for itself and how it plays mechanically and those new missions and just all of that put together, it's hard not to argue that it's something like a 9. And if they did do the multiplayer, it might have even knocked up to a 10. That's just how good that they've nailed it here.
Absolutely. Mechanically, this is everything I've wanted Halo to be. Visually, it's everything I've wanted Halo to be. And if it had that multiplayer component, I think this would be a game that would move consoles in a very significant way. Whether you're PlayStation or Xbox, I think this would be that kind of watershed moment that this generation has needed for a really great multiplayer game that people can rally around. It's unfortunate that that's not here. I think there's a lot of fun to be had in co-op, but like we both said before, the campaign can only carry you so far. So as a standalone campaign, I think people are going to love it when they play it. I think that there's going to be a lot of fun to be had with it, but man, that lack of multiplayer does just tremendously sting.
It does. But that being said, Halo Studios, it's nice to see them back to form. Just changing their name and changing the engine, changing the direction, and who runs the studio does seem to have done a lot of good for them. And hopefully the future's bright, because the present is. So yeah, we both really liked Halo Campaign Evolved. Let us know what you think in the comments though, and we really appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye everyone.
Bye.